This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There we go. All right. It helps to turn on the mic. There we go. Good afternoon, folks. Hour number, I think it's like 4.5 or something. So yeah, something like that. We've been on quite a bit here today. We're gonna switch gears here. We're gonna talk a little Okie, and my man David Dwork does an excellent job of covering the Cats. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at David Dwork, and of course check out the podcast Chirping the Cats, as he does an excellent job there. David, good afternoon, sir. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Orlando. It's good to see you again. An hour 4 of the latest Big O marathon. I love it, man.
Yes. It is the latest marathon today. Question for you, dude. Are you sure that was preseason last night? Because, brother, that was like a regular season game, intensity, everything, fighting, you name it. It was a juicy preseason game, brother.
Yeah, that was nuts. It was like there was no gap between game 6 of the playoffs last year and last night. It was 2 days later. I don't think I've ever been so entertained and honestly a little scared by a preseason game, because like at the end of the day, you go into these preseason games and the number one thing that you care about is that nobody gets hurt.
Right.
And you want to see your team win and you want to see them firing on all cylinders. But at the end of the day, the game doesn't mean anything. So it was a little disappointing to see one of the Panthers players get injured, Noah Chari. And it was, you don't want to see goalies getting run. And I mean, save that for the season. But I don't know if I've ever been more entertained by a preseason game in my life. And that might go across the board for any sport. That might be the best preseason game I've ever seen.
I'm with you. I think you'd have to go back to the Jets preseason game against the Giants the following year after winning the Super Bowl, and they win it in '69. And then back in those days, they had like 6 preseason games. Well, one of the games was against the Giants to open up the preseason. And one of the running backs from the Jets did not retire just so he could play in that game. We're talking about 6 preseason games, and he wants to play in the first one because in those days there was still the AFL-NFL rivalry that the AFL is not good enough. They don't belong in the NFL, yada, 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 all that. And then the Jets had just broken through to become the first AFL team to win the Super Bowl and kind of open that door up. And there was still that hate for the AFL that some guys didn't even retire that year just so they can stick it to the NFL and to the Giants that year. And I think the Jets beat them 45-10 or something. It was like treated like a regular season game, that kind of stuff. So you would have to go back to that far for a preseason game that actually matters that I can think of. Okay, put it that. And I'm old, so I can think of a lot of things.
Hold that knowledge out. I mean, that's like 40 plus years ago, and you're just like, yeah, this preseason game, the running back had 45 yards and he trucked a guy. I mean, dude.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying it's just funny. And yesterday when I'm watching this, I'm thinking these mother effers, they're taking this shit personal, dude.
Yeah,
this is. I don't care. This is an exhibition. I'm not losing to you at anything. I need to beat your ass at anything and everything because I need to have that psychological edge. That's what I got from both sides.
Yeah, you could see that like a lot of the tension and a lot of the hatred that built up in that playoff series was still very present last night. Like they were taking runs at Sam Bennett. They were going after Ryan Lomberg. And, to Bennett and Lomberg's credit, they were getting under their skin. They were getting into those nitty gritty areas. I mean, it's playoff style hockey and you love to see it. It was just kind of like, okay, these guys, they're not dancing around. They're not pussyfooting around. It's preseason, but they're sending messages starting right now. It's cool when you realize that it's the Panthers involved in this because we know the history, right? Like this is uncharted territory that we're entering. And when you throw on top of that, they now have an official rivalry, perhaps one of the absolute best rivalries in all of hockey right now with their cross-state rival. I mean, it's all happening for the Panthers.
Yeah. And listen, in the end, the real bitch is the Panthers have to learn how to win, and then they have to learn how to win big in the playoffs, and then they got to learn how to win a Stanley Cup and get to that point. But the funny part about it is it's not about stages for them anymore. It's really only about one effing team because they're stuck in their division, they're stuck in their state, and they happen to be the best hockey team on the damn planet. And so it's really about only overcoming your damn division, because if you overcome your division, you can overcome anything else in the NHL, because Tampa is the pinnacle of the NHL.
Yeah, it's not just Tampa either. I mean, Tampa, back-to-back champs, best goalie, in the last 20, 30 years, maybe. Ridiculous lineup. I mean, Tampa is right now, the team everybody's trying to knock down. But I mean, even in their own division, most, hockey experts are picking the Panthers to be third or fourth in their division, and they're picking them to be like seventh or eighth in the entire league. Like, that's how crazy this division is going to be. Boston is going to be good. Toronto is going to be good. The Panthers, the Lightning. Then you got Montreal, who was in the Stanley Cup final last year. It's going to be a very gauntlet-like division for the Panthers to get out of. Not to say that they can't. The Panthers could have a team that could finish on top of that division. Top to bottom, the Panthers are deep as hell. But it's going to be tough. And then when you think the first two rounds of the playoffs are more than likely going to be within that division anyway, I mean, it's going to be a crazy season.
David Dwork joining us, by the way. You can follow him on Twitter at David Dwork, always getting it done, man. And you can catch him at WPLG. And, of course, the podcast, Chirping the Cats podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it and listen to it. Now, I guess they're not getting that ultimate respect, because I think everybody respects everything about their team, coaching, everything. But there's this one big question mark, and that's the goalie. And if everybody knew Knight was an absolute stud, I think the Panthers would be picked to be the number 2 team in the entire NHL, right behind Tampa. But because of that one question mark, that's what's kind of looming. So what have you watched through 5 games right now with this team? They've beaten Nashville twice, I believe. What is it, Dallas twice? And now they just beat Tampa Bay. So that's your 5 wins right now. What have you seen from Knight, Bob? How are they going to handle this? What's your prediction? What are you expecting?
Well, as far as what I've seen from them, I mean, Knight looks just as good as he did last year. He's incredibly consistent and stable with his technique and his style and the way that he approaches the game, the way that he tracks the puck. It's kind of mind-boggling when you see somebody so young at 20 years old already looking so just absolutely solid, and mentally too. I mean, he doesn't get rattled. He's always smiling in the net. He's just really seems to have got it all put together. So with Spencer Knight, I'm expecting him to just continue on the path that we've seen him on since, he was at Boston College, since he was with Team USA, and now with the Panthers. He's just, continued to go in that direction. With Bob, this week, I thought he turned a corner. I thought, he looked like normal Bob, nothing, good, bad, whatever. He looked like himself. He really seemed to be getting locked in at practices this week. He did play in the game last weekend against Dallas where he played 2 periods. He gave up one.
Wait a minute. What's normal Bob? Because normal Bob for us.
Normal Bob is making some nice looking saves, maybe giving up 1 or 2 iffy goals. It worked last season, because last season the Panthers were winning games like 5-3 that Bob was playing. If you look at his stats from last year, his win-loss record was great.
I want an old Bob. I don't want normal Bob. I want old Bob. I want Bob in Columbus.
You're talking about Columbus Bob. Columbus Bob is in the past. Unless you've got the DeLorean, I don't think we're going to see Columbus Bob. I think if we can see a good Bob, he's still a very good goaltender. It's just cleaning up those little issues, those little miscues that are, fairly prevalent in his game. My expectation for Bob.
You're telling me he's a backup then? So he's just going to be the most expensive backup in the NHL history? Is that what's going to happen?
That's where things get iffy, because he's got that contract and he's supposed to be the guy. And Coach Q is saying, that's my guy. Bob's going to be the guy. Like he's saying what he always says. He's going to give Bob a chance to be the guy. The only difference is, if he's not, how long before Q pulls the plug and says, okay, I've got this Spencer Knight kid who's only 20, but he's amazingly consistent. He's just as good every start that I put him out there. He's just as good every practice I put him out there. When does that change? Because I still think, regardless of who starts the games, the Panthers are going to win a lot of games by scoring 5 or 6 goals. The Panthers are going to be a high scoring team. So
I
even
think
if
so.
Bob's out there giving up 3 or 4 goals a game, he's probably still going to win a lot of those games. So when does it reach the point where, okay, you really need to start, dialing into that playoff mode where you're probably not going to be scoring 4, 5, 6 goals every game, where you're going to have to win those low scoring, crazy games like we saw against Tampa last year. But I kind of expect it to be an even timeshare, give or take a little bit for most of the season, because the Panthers are going to be good enough that they can carry a goaltender. And for Spencer Knight, I think it's good for him not to play all the time, because this is going to be his first full NHL season, which is an 82-game marathon.
Oh, I
Last year
got
was a
you.
shortened season.
That
He's
makes
coming
sense.
from college where they only play like 30-something games. So let the young kid adjust to this heavy, heavy workload. So it's a good situation to have. And I'm not really looking for Bob or Knight to be, the all being starter for most of the season. I'd rather see a timeshare. That way they're both pretty well charged up for whoever's the better one when playoff time rolls around.
I like, you know what? That makes all the sense in the world, dude. This is why you do what you do. You're good at it, man. That really makes a lot of sense. And, the reason why I say it, and I know that we've all been waiting for this moment for a long time for the Panthers to finally turn the corner, yada, yada, yada. It's just, I really feel good about this team. Like,
Yeah.
they can score even against the best goaltender in the world in Tampa. I think they have a way of scoring on that guy like no other team in the NHL does, actually. I think the Panthers have. I don't know if that's a fact, because I don't watch every
Last
team
season it
against
was.
Tampa, but I want to say
Last
that the
season,
Panthers.
Vasilevsky's numbers against the Panthers were very different from his numbers against the rest of the league. The Panthers were the
Exactly.
only team that could really get to him last season.
That's why I'm saying that if they do get a guy standing on his head, as they say, in between the pipes, sky's the limit, man.
Yeah.
Panthers can lift the Stanley Cup if one of those two guys steps up and becomes the guy back there, because like you just mentioned it. Once things get tighter in the playoffs, you're going to need that guy that's just a son of a bitch that you can't score on. And one of them has to step up. If they do, I know people have heard this before and all that. I don't care. The Panthers have a championship caliber team. They are a goalie away from it now.
I mean, who's my age that's heard that in their, I mean, like the Panthers
Yeah.
have a championship caliber team when John Van Beesbrook was the goaltender, maybe. I
Right.
mean, it's
Right.
been a while. So
Right.
it's going to be fun. And I think they're pretty well set up with that team. I mean, it's very similar to what Tampa has. You've got this powerhouse roster that you can just churn out lines over and over again. You've got strong defensemen that can put the puck in the net. The Tampa X factor has been Vasilevsky. He's been the best goalie in the league for the last few years. And at the playoffs, he somehow turns it up to an even another level. If the Panthers can get that kind of goaltending and, they stay healthy, no reason to think they're not going to be one of the few teams that has a chance to lift that Stanley Cup.
Well, make us feel better as Panther fans. Where has Tampa taken a step back?
Well, I mean, look, when you're that good, you've got to pay a lot of guys, and they've had to let a few guys go, and that's kind of where are those young players that Tampa. I mean, look, you look at Carter Verhaeghe, right? He should have been one of the guys to step into a role as they had roster holes, but they couldn't afford to keep him. Now he's on the Panthers' top line, flourishing. The thing with Tampa is they're still going to have Stamkos, they're still going to have Kucherov, they're still going to have Braden Point. They've got Victor Hedman. They've got Vasilevsky. Mikhail Sergachev is a great defender, and you saw how well he was at standing up for his team last night. Like Tampa, even if they lose an entire line, which they did from last season, they're still going to be really good and really scary. But the Panthers, I think they're right there with them. I think the goaltending is really the X factor. So
Right.
I think it's going to be a hell of a. I mean, look what we started off talking about, right? The first preseason game that these guys haven't seen each other in months. And it was like no time had passed. It was like nothing had changed. The bad blood was still boiling over. I'm excited to see what this is going to happen this season. I mean, these guys are going to play each other. I think there's a game on like the last home game on April 23rd is probably going to be like a brawl. I would imagine that these two are going to be neck and neck fighting for positioning at the top of that division all year. It's just exciting to think about. You kind of feel bad for the teams like Ottawa and Detroit, Buffalo, the teams that are probably going to be at the bottom of that division. They're
Right.
going to get the crap beat out of them by Panthers, Tampa, Toronto, who's good in the regular season. Just don't talk to them when the playoffs start. And then Boston. It's gonna be crazy, man.
I just want night to come through, bro. I know that if night comes through, our season is going to be so much fun, and with football falling by the wayside here, I didn't
Yeah.
expect much from the Canes, but the Dolphins have really let me down.
Yeah.
Dude, Panthers and the Heat are South Florida sports saving grace right now.
The
Really.
Heat had a great preseason game the other day too.
Yeah.
Let's ride the preseason, huh?
No doubt. But the Panthers are the best team in town. They were the best team in town last year. They're the best team in town this year. But our winter sports are right now the heart and soul of South Florida sports. It's about the Panthers and the Heat. They are the best teams, and they are the teams that have the best shot at winning it all. You know what I'm saying? I think the Panthers first, then the Heat. The Heat need a couple of things to break their way. The Panthers just need one player to come through, and that's the goalie. That comes through, the rest, falls into place, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tell folks about Chirping the Cats and also at WPLG. So if they're Panther fans, what do they got to do to follow you?
Well, the Chirping the Cats podcast, you can get it, anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. And a thank you, as always, to Big O, because back in the day, he was the one that really kind of lit that fire under me and got me started. He was the reason that the Chirping the Cats podcast exists. So love you, Big O. And I just posted a new one yesterday, talking about all the things happening in training camp, talking about Alpha Barkov, talking about special teams. So you can find that anywhere. Download it, please. I appreciate it. Local10.com, all my written work, all the articles I put out. I just put one out a couple days ago about Anton Lundell, the Panthers 2020 first round pick, who's now practicing with the team. With the injury to Noah Chari, looks like he's pretty much going to be getting a shot in the NHL this year. So exciting time for the Panthers as their young guys are starting to come to fruition, as well as we saw Owen Tippett with a pair of goals last night. And then on Twitter at Dwork, daily coverage of the Cats. I tweet a lot from practices, games, and whenever something funny pops into my head.
That's right, and you'll see it there. He does great work there. So make sure you follow him on social media and subscribe to the podcast Chirping the Cats. As always, David, thank you for taking some time, my brother. I really appreciate it. Can't wait for this season, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Anytime, brother. We'll talk.
Thank you, my man. There you go. The great David Dwork. Love it. Talking a little Panthers.
This is the Big O Show.